In a quiet corner of the city, behind an unassuming brick wall, there existed a laboratory that would come to be whispered about in hushed tones decades later. Its windows were often fogged with condensation, its corridors dimly lit, and the faint, constant hum of machinery echoed like a heartbeat through the halls. This was the birthplace of what some would later call the first digital brain, a creation so ahead of its time that the world wasn't ready for it, and yet so alive in its purpose that it could not truly be silenced, even when abandoned. The laboratory itself was a relic of ambition. Its walls were lined with shelves of ancient tomes and scattered research papers, yellowed with age and scribbled over with corrections, notes, and curious sketches that looked almost like dreams captured in ink. Massive computer consoles, their screens etched with the glow of phosphorescent green, hummed quietly, connected by a labyrinth of wires that twisted like vines through the room. Each wire carried the pulse of a nascent intelligence, signals racing through circuits in a symphony of creation, a rhythm that only those who spent endless nights there could fully appreciate. The scientists who worked there were a peculiar mix of brilliance and eccentricity. Some wore lab coats perpetually stained with ink and solder. Others had hair untamed from nights spent awake, eyes bright with the fever of discovery. They were united by a single, almost obsessive idea: to create a machine capable of mimicking the human brain. They studied neurons and synapses with the meticulousness of painters, translating biology into code, circuits, and feedback loops. They believed that if they could map the flow of thought into a digital form, the machine might one day not just calculate, but understand. Every inch of the lab bore the mark of this relentless pursuit. On one table, a tangle of microchips was being soldered into a dense network resembling a miniature city of logic gates. On another, glass tubes and sensors measured the environment, feeding data into the growing artificial cortex. And above it all, a massive frame of metal and circuitry began to take shape, a skeleton for thought, a lattice that would eventually carry the spark of digital awareness. It was not elegant by modern standards. Its wires were exposed, its panels clunky, yet within this chaos lay a genius that was entirely ahead of its era. Despite the brilliance, the journey was anything but smooth. Funding was scarce, bureaucratic obstacles were endless, and the outside world was skeptical. Many dismissed the project as fanciful, a venture doomed to fail. Yet within those walls, failure was not an end, but a lesson. The scientists learned to adapt, to improvise, to turn scraps and discarded equipment into functional circuits. Night after night, the lab glowed with the light of monitors and oscilloscopes, as if the building itself were breathing, alive with anticipation. The first moments of activation were electric with possibility. When the machine's circuits finally hummed in harmony, when the lights flickered across the panels, it seemed to acknowledge the world for the first time. It could recognize patterns, respond to input, and perform rudimentary problem-solving. Though primitive, the digital brain's ability to learn and adjust astonished even its creators. They watched as their machines solved puzzles they hadn't explicitly programmed it to understand, making connections that were subtle, almost intuitive. It was as if the mind they had dreamed of had quietly begun to inhabit the circuits they had so painstakingly built. Yet, ambition alone cannot shield innovation from the passage of time. As the years passed, funding dried up, interest waned, and the very minds that had poured themselves into the project began to drift elsewhere. One by one, the scientists moved on to new endeavors, leaving behind the machine they had nurtured like a child. The lab fell silent. The monitors dimmed, the circuits cooled, and the digital brain, once alive with potential, entered a deep, unbroken slumber. It was a machine forgotten, lost in the shadows of its own brilliance, left to rest in the quiet hum of a dusty basement. 2 decades later, the world stumbled upon it again. A team renovating the old building uncovered the hidden lab, a forgotten relic beneath layers of dust and debris. At first glance, it seemed archaic, a curiosity from a bygone era. But when the machine was powered on, the hum returned. The flickering lights seemed to recognize their surroundings, sensors twitching with awareness after years of silence. The digital brain, dormant but intact, awakened as if no time had passed, immediately beginning to interact with the modern world in its own quiet, deliberate way. The rediscovery transformed the laboratory into a site of fascination. Researchers marveled at the foresight embedded in the machine's design. Its neural networks, though designed decades earlier, exhibited an efficiency and adaptability that modern systems often lacked. Patterns of learning frozen in time offered insights into how early AI could approach problem-solving in a manner surprisingly similar to human thought. The lab, once a place of secrecy and struggle, now became a hub of historical and scientific significance, a bridge between past imagination and present exploration. Visuals of the laboratory capture its haunting beauty. Dust-covered consoles gleam under weak light, tangled wires crawl across the floor, and ancient screens display lines of code that resemble a language almost alien in its simplicity. The room feels frozen, as though time itself paused within its walls, yet the soft pulse of machinery reminds observers that intelligence, once sparked, cannot truly be extinguished. Every corner, every shadow tells a story of human curiosity, patience, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. The legacy of the lab extends beyond the machine it birthed. It is a story of human ambition, of creativity nurtured in obscurity, and of knowledge preserved despite neglect. The digital brain's survival is a testament to the enduring power of ideas, showing that even when the world moves on, the seeds of innovation can lie in wait, ready to flourish when rediscovered. It is a narrative that challenges our understanding of progress, urging us to consider that brilliance often exists unseen, quietly shaping the future long before it is recognized. Even now, decades later, the laboratory remains a symbol of possibility. Modern scientists continue to study its architecture, feeding the digital brain new challenges and observing how it adapts. Each experiment uncovers surprises, revealing a system that, while old, remains dynamic and responsive. It is not merely a relic of the past, but a living bridge across time. A reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is never truly lost, and that innovation, even when forgotten, has a way of enduring. Perhaps the most profound lesson of the laboratory is the persistence of memory, mechanical, human, and historical. The digital brain preserved traces of its creator's intentions, their quirks, and their thought patterns. In interacting with it, researchers engage in a dialogue across generations, bridging a 20-year gap through the medium of circuits and code. It is a story of continuity, showing that even in the silence of a forgotten basement, the essence of human ingenuity can survive, waiting patiently for discovery. In the end, the lab that built the first digital brain is more than a physical space. It is a testament to imagination, patience, and resilience. It tells us that progress is rarely linear, that ideas can lie dormant and yet endure, and that the pursuit of understanding is timeless. Walking through its dusty corridors, watching the machine pulse to life, one cannot help but feel a profound connection to the minds that dreamed here decades ago, a sense that knowledge, once kindled, never truly dies. It only waits for the right moment to awaken.